Welcome back to The Price of Business. I'm your host, Kevin Price, talking to you about you and your business. I've been interested in this book I saw recently, and in fact, I've been studying up on it. It's called Coined, The Rich Life of Money and How Its History Has Shaped Us. Kabir Sehgal is the author of the book, and I really enjoyed it. I thought, I'm kind of geeky anyway, and it has a certain geek feel to it, Kabir. I'm sure you could appreciate that. But I think it's important, and I think it's important for people to learn about money. And so thanks for making that book.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. I wrote the book Coined. I was on Wall Street just a few months before the credit crisis began, and I wanted to know, why do people act so irrationally when it comes to money? What's happening in your brain when it comes to money? And so I found that all kinds of studies about, to compare brain scans of people who are high on cocaine to people who are about to make money, and they look the same. And so I was really intrigued with this, and the book took me to 25 countries around the world over 4 years, and I look at money from the neuroscience and the psychology to the theology and art history. So it's a panoramic look at everything you ever wanted to know about money.
Yeah, very, very interesting. I think it's a very timely topic. So what is your background, by the way?
I worked on Wall Street. I worked in investment banks, and I did emerging market investing. So I advised pension funds, mutual funds, where to invest abroad.
Okay. And when you decided to write this book, what would you say was the primary factors that went into that decision?
Well, again, working for the credit crisis, I saw just the misery it was causing around the world and on Main Street. And I wanted to know what's happening, why do we make these irrational decisions? And so that led me to a field called neuroeconomics. And I didn't think anyone was really writing about it. There's many books about the financial crisis, but no one was really explaining how we deal with money, how money sort of shapes our lives. And so it was really, I was in touch with a Stanford neuroeconomist. Basically, these are brain scientists that study financial decision-making. And it was really a new field of research, and I started writing about it, and I went deeper and deeper into this question of what's happening in the brain, and I found that, the part of the brain that's activating is the part of the brain that deals with fear and greed and emotions. This isn't new, but these neuroscientists can show that they can show you what financial decision you're going to make before you make it, which I thought was really intriguing. So that was sort of the genesis and the reason for wanting to write the book, is the brain sciences and how money deals with it.
Yeah. So if you're fearful about money, you're going to make fear-based decisions. For example, if you're
yeah, exactly. They've also shown genetic studies which shows that they take identical twins and they separate them, and they find that they invest in a similar manner. In fact, there's this one gene, and there's two variants of it, and if you have one variant of it, you're more likely to be risk averse, have higher credit scores, have higher FICO scores, and have fewer credit lines. And if you have the other variant of it, it's just the opposite, to the tune of 93 points on your FICO score, which means that your genes can influence, can shape your financial decisions. It can have a high impact on, high influence on your credit score.
Mm-hmm. What I found interesting, your endorsements are pretty amazing, pretty impressive group, and they're not, a whole lot of, there's certainly all ideological spectrums represented there, but I think that's what's interesting about it. There's a lot of people that I would say, like Isaacson, for example, who have more of a conservative worldview. It's kind of an interesting, eclectic group there. And I would say even Paul Volcker, in retrospect, would have to be called a conservative.
Yeah, you're probably right. My work in capital markets and Wall Street gave me great access to people at conferences and trips around the world. So I just maintained my relationships over the years. But the book is really apolitical. It's more like I do make some points that it's important to have sort of money that's not, people aren't just printing money unabated. But the book takes on 8 different perspectives, 8 different disciplines. So it's not a terribly offensive book. It's just sort of a way to provoke our thinking around money. And I think a lot of people were attracted to that, from Sheila Bair, who's a Republican, ran FDIC, to President Carter, who's a Democrat.
Yeah, that's an interesting, very eclectic group. And well, what would you say is the next step? Because, a lot of people are going to read this book and they're going to go, wow, they can really see where they're having difficulties in their decision making. But the book doesn't really do a whole lot, in my opinion, in addressing that as much as telling you, this is what's happening, and it's phenomenal. I like that. There's a certain amount of science and clarity to it as a result. But what do you discover that you really are fear driven when you're making financial decisions? Where do you go next after reading a book like yours?
Well, there's some tangible things. Like, for instance, when you swipe your credit card, there's less activation in your insula. The insula is a part of the brain that deals with anxiety or fear. And so it goes to show you that, Apple Pay, all these, Google Wallet, there's a neurological basis that if you swipe your credit card, you're getting less anxiety. So maybe it's a better thing to pay with cash because you'll be more conscious of what you're spending. But I do talk about the book that if you do use cash, you'll always want to wash your hands because cash is a public health risk, because they found traces of money circulating in New York City, 3,000 different microbes on it, involved with acne, staph infections, pneumonia, even traces of dogs and white rhinoceros. So
oh boy.
On one hand,
wow.
one hand, it might be good to use a credit card, but the other hand, if you use cash, you want to wash your hands.
Handle at your own risk. Yeah, there you go. Well, Kabir, I appreciate your time. Kabir Sehgal, and author of the book that I think is really a very interesting work, Coined: The Rich Life of Money and How Its History Has Shaped Us. And I got to tell you, that publishing house, Grand Central Publishing, has some really innovative titles. I'm reading a book right now from them called Where You Go Is Not Who You Are, which is one of their titles. And I thought it was a fascinating book. I'm not very familiar with them as a publishing house, but they're doing some innovative stuff.
Great publisher. I think they've published Jon Stewart's book or some of the Comedy Central books. So it's a great publishing house, and it's part of Hachette, which is one of the largest publishing houses, and it's a great team over there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks so much for your time.
My pleasure. Take care.
All right. If you want to get more information about this, make sure, of course, you check out the website, coinedbook.com, COINED book.com. Plus, we're going to make sure we have this interview not only available at priceofbusiness.com, but the sister news website, usdailyreview.com. And we're going to have more for you right after this on The Price of Business.